All right, so I'm going to switch my share screen over to my internet so you guys can see SYSDM. All right, so you all should now be able to see the site coordinator dashboard. So the way we're going to structure today's training is going to go through all of the types of support entries that you can do from the site coordinator dashboard, and then we'll move to the types of entries you can do from the student dashboard. So just as a reminder in terms of navigation of the system, anything that is done on a student-specific level related to one specific student is always handled from the student dashboard. So that is over here on the left, and you can click there quickly to go to the student dashboard for the student who is in the top left-hand side of your screen. So because we're going to start today on the site coordinator dashboard, this is where you would enter any type of support that is related to more than one student. So you can see in this school activities box, there are a number of different types of supports. So today we're going to start with Tier 1, and then we'll move through the other types of support entries you can do from here. Okay, so here's our Tier 1 entry page. It does, let me just try to hide that. Sorry, there's a window that's popping up from WebEx. All right, so when you click on the Tier 1 support button, you will be brought to this summary page that will show the Tier 1 supports that have happened at whichever school you have selected here. So if you are in more than one school, then you would be able to see all the schools you have access to in this dropdown. And it will also be only for the supports that were provided in this date range. So I know right now we are in July, so technically if we were to enter a support for today, it would not show up because it is not in this date range. For the date ranges of the system, it functions pretty much the same way that Legacy System did, in that we kind of switch over to a new school year as of July 1st every year. So when you all are in the system, in the production site, all of these dates will be defaulted to the next school year. So they will all say 7/1/2017 through 7/30/2018. But for now in this training site, it is still accustomed to it being the last school year. So we're going to go into this top right-hand corner and do Add New Tier 1 Support. And this is the screen that we are brought to. So one thing that we've done in Tier 1 supports that is hopefully an upgrade from how you guys entered Tier 1 supports in Legacy System is we've now allowed there to be multiple occurrences within a Tier 1 in one type of entry. So we know that sometimes Tier 1s, they can be multiple sessions, that kind of thing, and we don't want to muddle the data and have you guys try to kind of fit real life into something that doesn't actually reflect how you all think of your Tier 1. So what we have here is a date range. So you can do, let's say for this example, let's say that we had on June 5th through June 9th that we had a college fair. So we're going to go down and select the correct support category, so college and career preparation. The student support, we will say college awareness. And then if we have an activity set up by our affiliate, it'll be listed here. So this is for the school where the support was provided, and this is going to be important for when you guys add your case managed students if you choose to at the bottom. So I'll talk through that a little bit more when we're adding case managed students to the support. So here's where you can get to the number of sessions. So let's say this support happened 3 times during this date range. So there were 3 occurrences of this Tier 1 support in this date range. We're going to just continue, and we're going to select the primary provider as CIS staff. And of course, if you wanted to select the actual staff member, you could search. I'll say that this is Betty. And if you had additional providers that you wanted to record, you can do that through these drop-downs, but in the system, only one provider type is required. Okay, so here we get to the number of students served, and this should include any case managed students. It also should, to the best that you all can, should not duplicate any students. So if you're aware that maybe one class of students, one homeroom of students came to the fair twice, they would really only ideally count as going once. So as much as it's possible for these Tier 1 supports, please try to not duplicate students with any one given entry. So obviously if you do this Tier 1 support again, maybe in the fall semester or the spring semester, the student would have participated twice, but with any one single event, please try to only have any single student be counted once in this number here. If parents attended, you can put that number in here. We're going to say that 5 parents attended. And any other type of people that, that came to the tiered support can be entered here. For number of volunteers assisting, we're going to say that we had 10 volunteers. So down here where we enter the number of hours, this is the total number of hours. So this is going to be the total number of hours that this support took place across the entire week. So because it was 3 sessions, it's going to be the total number of time between those 3 sessions. So we'll say that each session was 2 hours, so that the total time is 6. Okay, so then for this number of volunteers assisting, this is the total number of volunteer hours. So if all 10 participated in all 6 hours of the support, then this would actually be 60. So this way we can really get a clean number of the number of hours of kind of service that we are getting from our volunteers and differentiate that from the number of hours that students are receiving supports. If there was a donation involved in this support, you can check this box and then enter what type of donation, whether it's food, clothing, transportation, anything like that. And you can also enter a value if that's relevant. You can decide to not see these fields if you want, just by unchecking that box. And here's where you can add case managed students. So like I said above, this where you select the school that this provided. So right here where I said this is at CIS test school, this is going to determine which students show up on this bottom half of the page. So these are all the students that are enrolled in CIS test school. So for you all, once you're actually in the system and working in SISDOM 2.0 next year, this list will likely be much, much longer than this, but these are the test students that we have in here for this school. So you can just go through and select whichever students participated in this support. And again, these students have already been counted in that total number of students that you reported above, and I think I put 200 for that. And it also defaults to the first date of the support. So if you wanted, you could say that Mad Dog came on the Monday session and Washington Dryer came on the Wednesday session, but that is how the date is going to default. And if maybe Mad Dog attended 2 of the sessions, you could adjust that and say 2 sessions, and that would all be recorded individually on his record. And if there were any case notes you wanted to add that were particular to the student for this Tier 1 support, you can definitely do that by doing this, and that will only be tied to this student. If there are general notes for the entire Tier 1, you can put those in this box up here that is in the actual entry area, and that will be recorded for the entire support. So any student who participated will also have this note. All right, so we're going to hit save and move along. So now you can see that we have, right here, we have the service, the support that I just entered, the 6.5 through 6.9, college and career preparation, college awareness, 200 students served, and 5 parents served. All right, so we're going to move on to batch, which functions very similar to the Tier 1. So I'm going to go back to the Site Coordinator dashboard, and I'm going to click on batch entry of Tier 2-3 supports. Okay, so top of the page, we have school year. So this, we're going to say 16-17. And then Tier 2 and 3, when you enter it in batch, different from the Tier 1 supports, is really only a single day of support. So where Tier 1, we have it possible to have a range, and you can have more than one occurrence. The batch, we are really asking for a specific support on a specific day. So you can say perhaps this one happened on July 10th. And again, it was at CIS Test School. And we will say that this was a behavior intervention and anger management. And again, if your affiliate had set up any activities, they would appear here. And here's the tier of support. So you can select whether this is a tier 2 or tier 3. We'll say this one was tier 2. And this is an individual or group. So what we are asking for here is we know that many of these, if they're done in batch, are likely to have been done in some type of group setting. But the difference is whether you would select group or individual, is whether there was an individual kind of attention given to that student during that time. So for example, if it was a tutoring after school and students were tutored as a group and it was just kind of a lesson on something that they were learning in school, then that would definitely be considered a group session. However, if it was in a group setting but each student was receiving some individual support, then that could be counted as an individual support. So here we're going to do number of hours. We will say that this total tier 2 support took 2 hours. And then here's the number of volunteers assisting, if any. We'll leave that at 0, so you can just leave that blank if you want. And again, we only ask for the first primary provider. That's the only one that is required. So we're going to say that this was done by a community partner. And you can search to find any of the community partners in your school. So we will say that the Boys and Girls Club was this provider. And of course, you can add a second provider here. And if you had any school staff set up, you could search them here. So the difference between batch and tier 2-3 in terms of adding case managed students is that the batch entry searches by case manager. So I'm going to go into this drop down and I'm going to find my name. I'm going to say search for students, and all of the students that I have on my caseload will appear at the bottom here. So I'm going to say that for this tier 2 support that we had Tommy Pickles, Baker Cookie, and Jimmy Neutron. They all attended. And then, of course, you can edit the actual number of hours that these particular students attended. So the whole support took place for 2 hours, but maybe Tommy got picked up early, and so his was only 1 hour. And very similar to the tier 1, you can add an individual case note that is just attached to the student's file if you want. And you can hit save, and then you're all done with your batch tier 2 and 3 support entry. So that'll now be recorded on all 3 of those students' profiles. One thing I do want to caution about the batch entry for tier 2, 3, and also the tier 1 is that they cannot be edited in a batch manner. So what this means is that once you add your students to that support, if there's a change that you need to make, you actually have to go to every student's profile to make that change. So there isn't really a way to pull it up in this batch way again and edit it. So that is one caveat to the batch entry and the tier 1, that we are working with the developers to try to find a resolution, but it is likely going to be like that for the near future at least. So that is one caution that I have about the batch entry and the tier 1 entries in terms of the edit. If anyone has any questions specifically about that and how that could impact you, just let me know. All right. So I'm going to go on to the site coordination. I'm going to wrap up all of the ones that are done on the site coordinator dashboard, and then I'll check the chat box, and then we can move to the student dashboard. Okay, so next I'm going to do site coordination entry. So just like the old ones, like the other ones we already showed you, this is a quick summary of all the site coordination entries that you've done at this school or that have been done at this school, done by anybody that have been done at this school for the date ranges above. So we're going to add a new one. And we will pick the date. This is a very simple form for site coordination. And this is also structured a little differently than you all are used to in Legacy System. And hopefully it is an improvement on how you all were recording these types of activities in the past. We really want to be sure that everyone is recognizing all the work that is done by our site coordinators that does not necessarily directly serve students. So that's why we've pulled site coordination out of the general tiered support entries and have it be its own its own entry area. So here you don't have to say how many students you're serving. It's really more about the site coordination activities, and it's focused on that and can capture that in a holistic way. So hopefully this is a positive change for you all. One thing I am going to caveat is that this list has been acting very finicky recently. So you will see that this list for site coordination is actually pulling up college. So the developers are working on that, but this would show the list of site coordination activities. So I'm going to just bring up a different screen with that list. One second. All right, it's just taking a second to load my PDF here. Okay, well, while that loads, I'm going to keep moving on, but I will, before the end of the training, show you what that list looks like for you so that you have a good picture. So just because this is required now, I know it doesn't make any sense, but we're going to just say that this was a college application assistance just to keep on moving so that I can show you what it looks like when this is saved. So here's the number of hours that you spent on this activity. So we'll say it was 3. And you can also indicate whether the school support plan was adjusted, yes or no. And then any notes. So if you want to put in notes about maybe what the support, how the support plan changed after this site coordination. Oh, it looks like my screen is not being shared. One moment. Okay, I'm sorry about that, guys. So here we have, I just selected college application assistance as the type of site coordination, just as to keep moving along. And you can also select which whether you adjusted the school support plan based on this site coordination effort or in partner with a site coordination effort. And you also have a note box that you can put anything about what you've adjusted about the plan or anything related to whatever this support is. So I will move along, hit save. All right, and this is probably not showing up here because it's not actually the activity that actually should be in site coordination, but it will show up here in this list. And of course, you can edit it just as all the other supports off of the gear from this summary page. All right. So now we're going to go back to the site coordinator dashboard off of this left-hand side. And the last one we have here is basic needs. So this is also a little bit different from how you all are used to doing it in legacy system. And we are adjusting the way we enter basic needs because we think of basic needs as givens that students need and that are kind of part of the work that we do in the schools that we're in. So they're kind of, they are kind of core to the work that we do, but don't necessarily really fall under the kind of supports that we provide our students. So here is, it's very similar to how some of the others are set up. You have a little summary page here, and you can select the school where it was provided. I'm going to add a new one, and I'll show you exactly what it looks like here. So you can pick whatever tier of basic needs this is. We do tend to see mostly tier 1 basic needs and resources for our network. But if you do have a tier 2 or tier 3, you can select those there. And the type of resource provided. So you'll see this category is kind of locked down because that's the only thing you'd be entering from here. And then here is the entire list of basic needs resources. So whatever it is that, that you are providing, I'm going to say it was clothing. And here we'll do coat drive distribution. So this particular basic needs activity was distributing coats to our students. So the primary provider we'll say was CIS staff. And again, if you wanted to search it, you can most certainly do that through here. And if you had additional providers you wanted to select, you could do that. And here is the number of students served. So this can be any of the students that are in this school, and it should also include any of case managed students that you know participated. So we will say that there were 50 students who participated in this. And if there are any parents served, maybe we also gave out 5 adult coats, you can do that. Anybody else that was served, and any volunteers that were assisting. So we'll say we also had 5 volunteers here. So here is where we really try to break it out for basic needs, and part of the reason why we did want to make it its own separate support entry. So often basic needs, they can be kind of goods rather than time that is provided. So you have the option here to either say that there were units provided or that there were a certain number of hours that were given to this basic need. So you can do one or the other or both. So we will say that the number of hours that this was, maybe it was just an hour long that it took, and that we provide that there were a total number of 55 items provided. So in this case, it would be coats. But of course, if you wanted, if it was just maybe a specific item that was provided and it didn't actually require any time, you could leave this total number of time at 0. Or on the reverse side, if maybe it was childcare that was provided, you could put the number of hours in here and leave the number of units provided at 0. So here's the total cost of all units, and this is kind of the value of the units provided. So we'll say that each coat was maybe $2. So 110, and you'll see that they do a little bit of math over here for you. So it'll show you the average cost per unit. If there was a donation related to this support, you can click that, and this will be now, these 55 coats will be recognized as a donation. And if there were case managed students, you can say that here. If not, that is totally fine, and you can say no. And then you'll see that no students show up in the bottom here. If you say yes, then all of the students at the school that you selected up top, which again was CIS test, will show up here. So we'll say that Bambi got a coat, Nicole, Sally, and Washington. And if maybe one of them had got 2 coats, you could change that number of units here. But it will always default to kind of 1 unit per student. All right, so I'm gonna hit save. And now you see that here is the basic needs. Whoops, I need to adjust my dates. Not sure what date I put on that. So here is the basic needs that I just entered. The clothing, coat drive distribution, 50 students served, 5 parents served, and the total number of hours. So one thing about the value of time is that we've auto-defaulted every support to be 2356 for the 17-18 school year. So this is a number that we get from the independent sector. I believe in the 16-17 school year, it was 2307 or something like that. So now it will be 2356 in our live production site. And we've defaulted this for any of the supports that are in there except for basic needs, site coordination, and case management. Of course, you can always adjust those if you want. If maybe it was a support that was provided by a professional, maybe a dentist or something like that, you can change that to be more reflective of what their actual value of their hour is. But the reason that we have not defaulted that for basic needs, site coordination, and case management is because we're really trying to capture any added time that is given to CIS over top of what is within kind of our affiliate budgets. So staff salaries are already taken care of when we look at staff budget. So we really try to look at whatever supplemental time is provided to CIS. All right, so now that we are done with Tier 1 batch site coordination and basic needs, that covers all of the supports from the site coordinator dashboard. So I'm going to check the chat box before we move to the student dashboard. So there was a question here about the volunteer hours and whether it should include any type of prep or coordination that the volunteers do in preparation for this service. And I would say that, yes, anything that the volunteers, the time volunteers commit that is related to this specific support, to include that. However, if there's maybe a training for all volunteers that they are going to be utilizing the information they learn across all the supports, really only count that training once or distribute it across all your supports. But, you know, keep it as simple as you need to be able to kind of manage it on your end. Don't feel like you need to be counting every second. We just try to get a general sense of the volunteer hours that are provided. All right, I'm going to try to open that site coordination list one more time for you guys. All right, now it worked. I'm not sure why. Let me switch over. All right, so here's the list of the site coordination categories. This should look fairly similar, I think, to what you all are used to in legacy systems. I'll give you guys just a minute to take that in. But again, I apologize that the system is being glitchy. We are working on it with the developers, so it should be resolved soon, I hope. So you can see from this list, this is also where you will be recording that you're reporting to school leadership or school support team or the affiliate. And so these are, of course, the required site coordination activities for the affiliate and for the site coordinator. All right, so we're going to move on to the student level entry. I'm going to go back to my system page. All right, so I'm going to go to the student dashboard here. So again, I'm in Tommy Pickles. If I wanted to find a different student and enter a support on him or her, I could do that in two ways. One, if I knew exactly who I wanted to go to, I could go find student and type in their information. I think we've probably mentioned this a few times, but as a reminder, this is a pretty detailed search that happens. So if what we would recommend is either using the student ID to search for your student or using kind of an abbreviated name. So maybe if there's a hyphen, then only type in the first three letters. So if it was Brown, maybe BRO, because if one thing is off in the way that you typed it, in the format that you typed it, your student's not going to show up. So just keep that in mind if you're struggling to find your student. Of course, if you want, you can do an open search, and that will search for all students in your affiliate, and they will show up, all students in your affiliate will show up down here. The other way that you can find the students that you are likely to want to enter supports for is by going to My Caseload. Here are all the students that I'm case managing. And you can just click on any of these red hyperlinked names, and it'll bring them up to this area here. So I'm going to switch over to Sally Spaghetti. All right, and here we are in her profile. So we know it because her name is in the top left, and we also see her information up here. So you can actually tell that I have not completed her student needs assessment or student support plan because these are red. So just as a reminder, that's an indication that those have not been completed. But down here, we will go to the student toolbox and do a tier 2-3 support entry. All right, so these are all of the tier 2-3s that have been entered for Sally Spaghetti. So we're going to enter a new one. We'll say it's this school year. it was provided on the 30th of June. Academic assistance, homework assistance. And again, activities would show up here if the affiliate had set any up, but it is not required to select any, so we are just fine leaving that blank. And then the provider type, I will say is a community provider. And I will search for the community provider. We will say it is test provider. And you can also record when this support was delivered, so whether it was an after school, before school, during school, summer, or weekend. We're going to say that this was after school. And just as the others, you can continue to select different provider types if you want and search if you have them already set up in the system. Here you can select whether it's Tier 2 or Tier 3. Also, this was a Tier 3 support, and it was individual. So here's the number of hours. We'll say it was 1 hour of a support. And you can see this value of time is 23:07, but if you wanted, you could easily adjust it. And it does a quick calculation based on the number of hours that you put in here. So maybe if it was a 4-hour session, this will multiply the 23:07 or whichever number you put in here by 4. So just to show you guys, we'll just put $25 in there, and that turns to 100. All right, number of volunteers assisting, we'll say 0. You can also leave that blank if you don't want to take the time to type 0. And if there was any donation related to the support, you could do that here. And if you decide you don't want to enter any donation information, and there wasn't actually a donation, you can clear those by just closing that box. So then you don't see them anymore. And here is a change of how we are looking at check-ins. So we know that a lot of times check-ins in real life do happen in kind of tandem with other supports that we're providing our students. So we don't want you all to have to enter this twice, and maybe then the number of hours of support the student receives is actually not accurate. So what we've done is we've added an option within every Tier 2, 3 support that is entered on the student level to add a check-in to something that happened within that support. So here, if you check this box, there's going to be 4 questions that you'll also see when we go to do an individual check-in. So here you can say whether you discuss goals, support, progress, and anything else that you discussed related to the student, personal. And you can add any case notes, so maybe you want to say here, there we are, that you discussed students' progress in math. All right, and then we're going to hit save. And here is the support that we just looked at. So you can view your case note by using this little magnifying glass. And you can see exactly what I typed just popped up. And this is just a quick summary of the information that I entered in that support. And of course, if you wanted, you can edit it through the widget, the gear off to the left-hand side. All right, so I'm going to now show you how you can enter individual check-ins. So if a check-in does happen, and that's kind of the main thing that the support is, and there isn't a different support that is tied to this check-in, you can certainly still enter a check-in kind of on its own. So this is through this check-in entry button right here in the student toolbox. So you can see there are no check-ins that are recorded here. The ones that are recorded on the tiered supports will be showing up here. We are also working with the developers to ensure that that is working properly. So those that you do record in the Tier 2, 3 support will count for check-ins, for monthly check-ins in terms of any requirements that you all have. So those will count. I know it's not showing up there, but they do count, and they will be showing up there shortly. All right, so the school year is 16-17. It is It is auto defaulted to check-in, and you cannot change that since that's the only type of support that you would enter from here. And then CIS staff. So I'm going to go and I will say that it was Betty that provided this. And it's the same 4 questions that, that you were asked on the other Tier 2, 3 entry page about what kind of things were discussed during this check-in. And you also have the number of hours that this check-in occurred, so maybe it was 0.5, and whether the student support plan was adjusted. And if it was, then this box shows up where you can write notes about how it was adjusted. So maybe decided to attend math tutoring twice a week instead of once. So that is how you've changed the support plan. And if you want to add a specific case note again, you can do that here. Whoops, I skipped the date. That is important. We'll say it was the 19th of June. And there is the support that I just entered, the check-in I just entered. All right, so that is all of the support entry options in System 2.0. I'm going to go back to the chat box and just see if people have questions about the student side of things. Okay, here is a great question. So does every student who receives a Tier 2, 3 service need to have a student support plan and be officially case managed? So what we might have to talk to your affiliate about your specific circumstance. I know there are some students that are participating in Tier 2 services that may not be case managed. The part that is critical for us is that we cannot have students in the system, in System 2.0, that are not case managed. So we cannot have any students in here that are not considered a case managed student and do not have parent consent. So if there is some other nuances that we need to talk through with your affiliate, by all means, we are happy to do that, but that is kind of the hard line where we have to draw in terms of entering students into the system. Are there any other questions about support entries, either on the student side or on the site coordinator dashboard side? All right, it doesn't look like there are many questions coming in, but I'm going to stay on the line for another 15 or 20 minutes until 3 o'clock. So if you do have them, feel free to enter them in the chat box. I can also put you off mute if that is easier for you to ask your question. So thanks everyone for joining, and please have a nice rest of your week.